What's up, guys? Welcome to Real Men Talk. Today, I'm running solo. Kyler's not here, but I have got a very special guest I'm excited to bring to you guys. He's actually not new. Dennis has been with us before, but I'm excited to have him on, and we're going to be talking about an upcoming conference. And this is exciting because this is the first time you guys are really going to be able to hear about this conference. And so let's get started on Real Men Talk.
Welcome to Real Men Talk, discussing the tough issues facing men and their families every day. Here's Anthony Kernot.
All right, what's going on, guys? Man, I'm excited for this conversation today. Dennis, what is going on, man? How are you?
Man, it's great to hear from you again. It's so interesting. I talk to my wife all the time. We're like, how do I know this guy already? I've never met him face to face, but there's just something kindred about that spirit and that brotherly connection with Christ. So it's definitely thinking about you a lot, praying about you a lot, praying about what you're doing. And so it's really good to connect again. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, 100%. And I feel the same way. Like this kindred spirit that has just connected. I love it when God puts people in my lives that you just can coincide with just like that. And so before we get started on the conference, and we'll probably talk about this again today, but I'm so excited. So Dennis has released a book. You can see it there without a glare. Hello, I'm Matthew. It is so good. It is such an amazing book and resource that you have created here. And so you've been super busy, man. Of course, last time we had you on, you talked about your journal, the Days with Dads, all that good stuff, which I also have here. And so, yeah, man, this is awesome. You just give us a little bit of what you've been doing lately.
Yeah. So, it's funny, Anthony, I just released a podcast today, and it's really talking about hearing the voice of God. And one of the benefits of hearing God's voice and obeying it is that you hear God's voice even more. And I just, in a season in my life where I'm seeing God speak to me through his word, I feel like he's speaking to my heart. And when I'm obedient to that, it just seems to open up this incredible door where I just hear him more and more. And the more I'm obedient in what I hear, he keeps giving me these awesome privileges to write this, to say this, to speak here, to connect with guys like you. So it's just overwhelming. And I think the source of that is really just being in a position of hearing his voice and then being obedient. So I'm excited for where God has me. I'm excited to continue to hearing his voice. And as you know, that the more you step out and start claiming some of the territory that belongs to the enemy, the more he gets angry.
100%.
He's vile to begin with, but when you start taking his territory, and just on a side note, that's what I pray more for you right now than anything is God protect him. I know the enemy is going to hate the lives that he's changing and touching, and he's going to zero in on him, his family, his work, and everything. And so we're seeing that as well. But that is a great indicator that God is up to something, and that the enemy he's angry. So yeah, that's where
that's
we're at.
Exactly right. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that because this last week it's been a doozy, and I was telling my wife, I was talking to my wife, and I was talking to Kyler, and I was just telling him, I said, obviously, I have his attention, right, which is a good thing, right. I'm kind of an aggressive person anyways, right? So I'm like, bring it on, buddy.
Right.
And so, the fact that I am doing something right that causes him to fear me excites me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. There are stressful situations, right? You don't want to downplay,
right.
Any of that stuff. It can be stressful, but at the same time, kind of like what you were saying, I know who God is, right? I know who's in charge. I know who's on my side, right? So even though it's difficult now, we will come out victorious in the end.
That's right.
And that's what we put our faith in, right?
Right. It's easy to do that. It's easy to to swap talking trash with the enemy when you know you have your big brother behind you in Jesus.
That's exactly right.
It's like, it's how bold am I to talk about this? You think about Ephesians, like he's got a kingdom, he's got powers, and he knows how to defeat us if we don't
Mm-hmm.
stand with that big brother behind us. And so, I love talking trash back to him because I know that his is just smoke and mirrors, and he can't do
That's right.
anything to us apart from God allowing it. And everything God
That's
allows
right.
is going to be for our good and for the kingdom anyway. So I'm with you, brother. Bring it on. Like, let's
Bring it on.
call it what it is,
Yes.
and let's deal with it. He tries to mask it and says, "Oh, this is a fight with you and a person." It's not. That's a war against you and a spirit behind that person or behind that situation. And the more we recognize that, the less power he seems to have and influence. And so I'm with you, man.
That's
Bring
right.
it on.
Bring it on. That's right. And so, all right. So let's kind of jump into this. So this is, like I said, this is kind of the first time that anybody's really heard publicly about what we're doing. So January 4th, we are doing a men's conference. It's going to be called Real Men Discipleship Conference in St. Louis at Sunset Hills Holiday Inn. And Dennis is going to be one of our speakers. And I am so excited about the lineup of speakers that we have because I have so much faith in all of you, right? It's amazing because basically what I have done is I have just taken this collection of men that God has put in my path, awesome men like Dennis, like yourself, Dennis, Riley Meek and Christian Edwards, these men that I have come to know, like like we may not have met face to face, but our spirits just coincide. We have a like-minded vision, right, for the kingdom. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And so I am so excited to announce that we're going to be doing this January 4th, Real Men Discipleship Conference. And like I said, I'm going to be speaking. Dennis is going to be a speaker. So Dennis, just kind of give us your heart for, I know you've been praying for it. I've been seeing your messages, all that stuff. I know you've been praying for it. I know you're prepped for it. Just kind of give us, kind of your vision behind what you not only expect out of the conference, but what you're going to bring.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with you. When you asked me to be a part of this, I was like, oh, yeah, I would move any part of my schedule around to be a part of that. But deeper than that, it goes back to a quote that I had heard somebody share with me before, and I wrote it down just because I didn't want to get it wrong. But this man of God says this. He says, anything that offends and makes a man or woman, boy or girl, less than what God intended, well, that's a war. That's a battle that we're willing to fight. And when I saw your heart for men, and I see the onslaught and the slaughter of men just being overcome by the enemy, by the world, I see what's at stake in families. I see what's at stake in men's lives and young boys' lives. And I'm just saying, that's a battle. That's a battle that I want to be a part of. And so when you said you guys are putting this together, I'm like, I want to be attached to that because I'm seeing the need for men like you and some of the other speakers that you've spoken up that are just willing to stand up and say, over my dead body, I'm not going to let you just walk over the men that God is going to put in my path. I'm going to fight for them. They're worth it. And so
That's right.
That's really was my sort of calling, my call to like be a part of what you're doing,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so excited. It's funny because I was praying. I had already had the other speakers lined up that everybody will hear from later. And I was like, Lord, I'd really like to have one more speaker. And I was just praying and I was praying. And it was funny because I was praying about it. And then we did your podcast, right? With the Days with Dads book. And we were sitting there and we were talking and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. This guy's got to be a part of this. This has got to happen. And so a couple of days went by. I continued just to kind of pray about it and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? The worst thing he could tell me is no,
right.
And so I shot you a message and I was like, yes, and just the excitement in your text message. I was like, this is it. God wanted him there.
Yeah. God does that, right? He's so,
yes.
What I appreciate about what you just said is you had a thought and then you brought it before the Lord. and you're like, God, I'm excited. I'm all in on this. This makes sense to me. But then giving him time to speak. And then he does these beautiful things of like confirming it in the coolest of ways, right? It's just like,
Yes.
oh, okay, well, that makes it pretty clear. But just giving them that pause and just saying, God, you speak into this, because I'm irrational. Like I get excited and emotional
That's
and I'll
right.
react. But what I'm finding out, like what I see is what I've always seen, especially with me, when you got two men and they're sort of that type A personality guy, what my experience has been is they almost immediately are like, not enemies, but they're like, let me show him who I am. Let me show who,
Right.
and it's this back and forth. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Jocko Willink, but he says
Yes.
that he was a Navy SEAL and sort of stuff. And he said that he made almost a conscious decision to say, what if I don't see him as a competitor? But what if I just open up and him become an ally for me? And what
Hmm.
I'm seeing with some of the things that you're doing as you're bringing these men together is you're taking that natural part of us men who just want to, I want to be the alpha. And you're just saying, you know what, let's put it all aside. Let's put our side and let's think of something bigger than both of us. And that's the kingdom. And my wife and I have had so many conversations recently where it's like, I don't even know these guys out there. And every time I put something on Facebook and I share what God is doing through me, they are just like gung ho, happy, almost like celebrating you to this level that is just unreal. And what that speaks to is men that understand that the kingdom is so much more important than you and I, my empires.
Yes.
My name and people saying, oh, Dennis did this or Anthony did that who cares anymore? And
Hmm.
that has got to be one of the most scary things that the enemy is going to have to face, is men that can lay down their egos and they can simply say, this is about him. This is,
That's right.
and I think God is going to do some incredible things with the men that you have assembled. I think that seems to be the one thing in common, is nobody seems to say, talk about me, talk about me, talk about what I'm doing. It's like, who
Right.
cares? You know,
Yeah.
I think it was Corrie ten Boom who said it. Somebody said, like, how do you handle all the accolades that people are giving you? And she said, nobody ever talks about the donkey that Jesus rode into. She's like, I'm just a donkey for Jesus.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's the men that you're starting to assemble around. And I know that's just the coolest thing. That still continues to just kind of take me by surprise.
Yeah. 100%. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about our local church, right? And we were talking about the need for unity in our town,
Mhm.
right? Which really the church as a whole needs unity, right? And we were talking about the importance of unity and how that needs to come about, and I was telling him about this, and I was like, look, I said, here we are, we're having this conference. I have no idea what denomination any of these guys are,
Hmm.
nor do I care. But what I know for sure is that they are all kingdom driven men. And that's all that matters,
Mhm.
right? That God is first, Jesus is king, right? And there are men that need light, that need hope. That's all that matters.
That's it.
Nothing else matters. And I pride myself in surrounding myself with men who are like that.
Hmm.
Who, because I'm going to be real honest, I'm definitely one of those type A personalities, right?
Mhm.
I have to crucify that often. I want to be the best. I want, I want to be driven, you know what I mean? And I think so, keeping myself focused on kingdom work, right? Versus me work, and surrounding myself with men who are like-minded makes it easier to do,
Mhm.
right? When you don't have this other guy, I mean, good grief, we've got guys who are coming that are, I mean, that are already doing it. You know what I mean? Speaking all the way across the country,
Mhm.
speaking at the same events Donald Trump's at, you know what I mean? These guys, they don't care. They're
Mhm.
just like, look, we're kingdom driven people.
Mhm.
That's it. It doesn't matter what I've done. It doesn't matter what we're doing. What we know is that there are people out there who need hope, and we have that hope. His name is Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That's what it's all about. And I love that. I love that about these men that are coming. I love that about about yourself. And I love the fact that we're going to be able to have all these men in one place.
Mm.
You know what I mean? That we are going to be able to that all of these men are going to have an opportunity to disciple other men, to take that same kingdom-driven principles back to their local body,
Mm-hmm.
to disciple their own. Right? That's because that's the whole heart behind it. The whole heart behind it, and Dennis, I know you know this, but just so the listeners understand, the entire heart behind this conference is that people will come to get discipled, and then they will have the resources and they will have the discipleship that they need to take it back to their own local body,
Mm-hmm.
to disciple the men in their own church.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If there's one thing outside of unity that our churches need as a whole, it's godly men.
Mm.
We have to have it. We have to have godly men taking a stand for the kingdom. And I was listening to a guy the other day. He was talking about of course, living in the end times, and all that good stuff. And how he believes there's a remnant and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay. And I don't know. There's a lot of controversy. It doesn't even matter. But if there's going to be, men have got to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to change the next generation, right? Because it's generational. Right. If we're going to change the next generation coming up, it's got to be the influence of the men.
It has to be.
It's got to be.
It's never been more evident than right now. And you see it in your book, you see it in your conversations and every one of your podcasts. It's literally, whether you've used those exact words or not, it's like God doesn't have a plan B. There's no such thing as a plan B. It's either and this sounds like a cliche, but if the king doesn't rise, the kingdom dies.
That's right.
Right. I mean,
that's good.
If a man doesn't stand up, and I think I stole that from somebody, and I wish I could give him credit, but that's just too next level for my thinking. But if men don't stand up and be the men, then there's going to be this counterfeit idea of what it's supposed to be like, what families are supposed to be like, what communities are supposed to be like, and you think of the next generation of boys that go one more generation without an idea of what it, some of it, like you and I are living in that, where we've kind of seen that switch where it's okay, it's less, men are less than what they should be. And now you go one generation where they don't even have sort of the ability to look back and say what men used to be, because it's so far removed from that. And so the stakes are higher than they've ever been. And like you say,
100%.
There's no plan B. If men don't rise up and lead their families, lead their churches, the church's greatest need right now, I think, are the type of men that we read in the Old Testament, like the prophets who would stand up against an entire. I've been reading Jeremiah, and you're like, this man stood up for 40 years. And he, whether he saw converts or not, he never wavered in his message. And so those people that chose to follow God and turn from their wicked ways, or those that didn't, without a doubt, they at least knew what the expectations were. And I think sometimes that's our role as men, is we're going to make an invitation to all these men that God will allow us to speak to. We may not be able to control the outcome. That's a God thing, and only a God thing. But we have to stop apologizing about the reality that there is no plan B, that men have to rise up, and they're unequipped. And that's what we have to do. If God has called us, then we have to do our best to be the example, to equip them with whatever resources that are going to help them. And what I'm seeing more than anything is just a bunch of men that have not been initiated. They don't know whether they're a man or not. So they're looking at the world and saying, hey, do you call me a man? Do you call me a man? And that target, as you know, moves all the time. It changes. Yes. And so how do you hit a target if somebody doesn't say what to aim at? I think it was John Eldridge who says, I'm after the path of life, and only God himself knows that. And that's that idea of masculinity. I want to know what it means to be a man. And only
Hmm.
God and those men that he has mentored and he has grown and matured, only those men can validate me and help me to see if I'm growing in that direction. So much at stake, my man. So much.
Yes, absolutely. I talk all the time about the men of America. Well, and I shouldn't even say America. The men of the world right now. We have an identity problem.
Hmm.
We have our identity is in what the world says that a man is, and we fail to remember that we have an identity in our Creator.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He has made us men on purpose. Right?
Right.
It blows my mind. It blows my mind when I think about this. When I think about, okay, so you look at everything that's going on in the world today, right? You look at all this stuff, and yet God chose me
Hmm.
to be born at this time, at this moment, in this place, on purpose.
Hmm.
It was no accident, right? He has a plan for me, but that doesn't just apply to me. That applies to you.
Right.
It applies to every man. You were born. You were put here on earth for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Our identity is found in our Creator, and that's the whole purpose behind this conference, is to bring to light that, hey, guys, there's a world that needs you.
Right.
It is time for you to take a stand.
Mm-hmm.
I love. We just got through doing a podcast series over it, over the mighty men in 2 Samuel chapter 23. He talks about the three elites, and they've all got weird names, so I'm not going to try to
Yeah.
do
No.
that right now.
Yeah.
And I butchered them once. I'm not going to do it again. And but you know, you look at these men and what they had done, right? If you notice, every one of them took a stand,
Hmm.
right? They were ranked by what they did, but what they did was caused because they took a stand,
Right.
and the Lord, and it says the Lord brought about a great victory,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's our turn. We have to take a stand as men, as godly men. We have to take a stand, and the Lord will bring about a great victory.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to somebody the other day. We were talking about the state of the country, and I asked him. We were talking about voting and all that good stuff, and he's like, man, he said, I don't know. I think just whatever God's going to do, He's going to do, and there's not really much I can change about it and stuff. And I asked him. I said, man, what would have happened if Gideon would have said no?
Hmm.
I mean, think about that for a moment. And now obviously we know that God can do whatever He wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
He could raise up somebody else. But what if He had said no?
Hmm.
Would Israel would have been delivered? Would that have happened at
Hmm.
that moment? Or because of the consequence of one man, Israel would have stayed in bondage, or they would have been destroyed, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because he chose not to. That's a terrifying thought. That is a terror.
But it's a thought you're seeing every single day. Every single day, men are choosing not to stand up and lead their families. And so we can kind of go back and forth. What would God have done if Gideon didn't act in obedience to him? But you can also watch the news. You can look at your neighbor's marriage falling apart. You bump shoulders every day with men who have this distorted definition of what it means to be a man. You're bumping into those guys all the time that are
Mm-hmm.
choosing to not stand up when God's put the call in their life. You're making it so clear that the call is it's part of our DNA. God
Yes.
created you on purpose to be a man. That means something.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to make a plug because I'm still working on it. But one of the things I'm working on is I'm looking at trying to put this 52-week thing of like devotions together for a father to sit across from his son and say, son, this is what it means to be a man according to Adam. And sort of a snapshot of that. One of them, it touches on exactly what you said, is God looked at Adam and said, I created you to create. I have given you the ability to take up where I left off. I stopped creating on the sixth day, but I've empowered you to create a family, to create a business, to create a ministry, to create a friendship, to create a community where I'm honored, a place of worship where I'm honored. Like, we have this gift. And one of the things I do at the end of that weekly devotion, because I think doing it every day is a lot for an 8-year-old boy and his dad. And a lot of those
Right.
dads are like, what, give me something I can work on for a whole 7 days. But
Right.
as they talk about being created by God to create and to make things, is to encourage a dad and a son to make something. And I did that with my son. We talked for a whole week about what it means to be made in his image and to be like him, in the sense where God has given us this freedom. And then we made this like ski rack where we put our skis in the garage. And,
Yeah.
he's 10 years old when we did it. And it's like, he'll never forget that when he sees that, the lesson that was attached to it.
Right.
And that kind of goes into what you're saying. It's like, you either have to stand up and accept the call that God has put on your life to be a leader, to be a man, or if you miss it completely. And when you miss
That's
it,
right.
things die. Families die
Yeah.
all the
We
time.
see
in
the
America.
results of it.
Everything you and I see in our world, I think if we had a couple hours to share together, we could trace every single one of those major problems our country, our nation, our world is facing. And you can trace it back to men not being what God created us to be.
That's right.
Whether we're talking about, the growth of homosexuality, whether we're talking about, national debt, whether we're talking about divorce rates, I have learned enough in my own life to say that I lay all of that at the feet of men who have been given this beautiful gift and responsibility to be what God has created us to be. And the failure of that, I will never lay on the feet of a woman or a child or an educator or a politician, but I will lay it at the feet of a man and saying, where are we failing? And so
Yes.
when you put a conference together for men and its unity, first thing I was like, is that the right theme? And not making any judgments, just praying about it. And I'm like, if I'm going to defeat an army, the best thing that I can do is isolate them. So I'm taking one on at a time.
Mhm.
And when the enemy can isolate Anthony all by himself, he's pretty easy to whisper to. He's pretty
right.
easy to sort of show him how he's missing the mark. And you just become less and less and less and less. But you get around a couple brothers who can say, hey, that's a lie. Or, hey, man, you need to rise up. Or, hey, man, have you considered this? Hey, man, let me help you with this. You just see this like wall come around you where you're not as easily to be defeated. And so as I was praying about what you've chosen, I'm like, that is perfect. Men need to know that we're meant to stand up, but never ever alone.
Yes.
We have too much at stake to try to go at this alone.
That's right.
So-
And so to piggyback off of that, a couple of things, one, let me start with this. There was a man by the name of Reinhard Bucky. You ever heard of Reinhard Bucky? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, he was a missionary, all that good stuff. In his biography, he was talking about that he told God, he's like, I don't know if you've got the right guy. And I'm paraphrasing. He's like, I don't know if you got the right guy. And God basically just up and told him, he's like, you weren't my first pick. You were actually number 3. And whenever I heard that, it rocked me. Right? You see the things that Reinhard Bucky did, or allowed the Lord to do through him. And I was like, I never want to be those other 2 guys. Ever. I never want to miss the mark that bad. Right? And God has chosen us for a purpose as men. You know what I mean? And man, I've got to land this plane. And it's so hard because this is such a good conversation.
Right.
But man, it's so good. It's so good. And God is calling us. He's calling us. We have got to rise up. We have got to rise up to the occasion. We don't have an option anymore. It's either we rise up to the occasion or we fail like all of our other church fathers in the past and allow our country to turn into what it has been turned into. I hear stories of, oh man, I wish it was like it was in the old days. Well, how did our country get in the shape that it's in if those days were so great?
Right.
What happened? It is the men of the church's fault. And I'm not talking about 10 years ago. I'm talking about over the last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Of just sitting idly by and allowing things to change and not taking a stand for truth and not taking a stand for the word of God, and just wanting to stay inside of her. We can get off another whole conversation on that. But anyways, this is the call. And this is the purpose behind the conference. Let's equip men to go back to the local body. Let's equip them to go back and bring forth, discipleship and other men, to raise up other men that can be like, hey, we are taking a stand. That's it. That's what we're doing. And so, man, I'm so excited. I know you're excited. I'm excited for you to be there. And listen, guys, the website will be realmendiscipleshipconference.com. It will drop on September 23rd. I don't know when this podcast will release, but the website will drop on this September 23rd. Ticket sales will start then. You guys can buy your tickets and all that good stuff on there. And so it is exciting stuff, guys. Dennis, thank you so much for the last rundown. Why don't you tell everybody where they can get connected with you?
Yeah, I think the best way is just to go to our website. It's www.kingme-ministries.com. Everything that, whether it's the podcast, the books, whatever God is doing at that time, you're going to be able to find it there. So thanks for that plug for sure.
Absolutely, 100%. And you guys go check him out. And, as always, if you got any questions for us, you find us at realmenministries.com. You can get us on social media, all that good jazz, and know that we love you guys. And as always, I want to end in a prayer. Holy Spirit, teach us to be leaders of our homes, of our communities, and of our churches. And teach us to be godly, courageous men. In Jesus' name.
You've been listening to Real Men Talk. If you'd like to get in touch with us, shoot us an email, realmen@palaceofpraise.com, or visit our website at realmenministries.us. You can also message us through social media. If you're a man age 16 and up and would like to be a part of the conversation, join us at the Palace of Praise every Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. If you don't have a home church, consider joining us for worship on Sundays at 10:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. Palace of Praise is located at 1400 Herschel Best Boulevard in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. New episodes of Real Men Talk drop every Thursday at 5 p.m. on all major podcast platforms. You can also find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook. Real Men Talk is a production of Real Men Studios in cooperation with Palace Media Services.